Hello, how are you? It's good to see you. And yeah, I called today. Welcome to day 5. Well, I need to bring my energy up. So, welcome to day 5 of the Antioxidant Thinking Challenge. And it's been no secret all week long. I've been talking about how this has been as cathartic for me as it's been a great reminder and keeping me really present to the way I think. And just as a mini recap, it really is about to be very cognizant of the fact that our thoughts are either inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. And so learning how to think in a way, it's learning how to not react to our thoughts and getting to that space of inner peace. That's been something that I have craved for almost most of my life, was that space of peace. And that's the reason why I like solitude, because I get to connect with myself. It's no lie that when stuff doesn't go the way we want it to go, or we need it to go, that it doesn't jerk us, cause us. I mean, that's part of the reason why I say I need to get my energy up, because right now I'm quite frankly very triggered by the fact that things, yesterday, I've been excited because things were looking good. I then was offered an opportunity to collaborate and so forth. But the truth is that when you're struggling financially, and I don't mean to compare myself to anybody else, okay, so let me back up a minute here. Before I go any further, today was the original title for today was Hooked on Self-Love, and I've changed it to Radical Self-Love based on the way my day has gone. So talking about finances, recently I had my entire purse stolen. It was pickpocketed, basically. I was loading things in the car. I had put, which I don't normally do, I had set my purse on the roof of the car as I was reaching in, and there was nobody around. It was an empty parking lot. I was in a hotel, and the next thing I know is this guy and his dog just came out of nowhere, and before I knew it, my purse was gone and he was gone. And when I did see him again and I confronted him, I went up to him and asked, he told me he didn't know what I was talking about. He hadn't seen a purse. But the bottom line to that is it got all my cards, and it got my birth certificate and my social security card. It was a disaster. And I've come to the East Coast, and things are slow to get started. Okay, they're just going slow. So I can easily be confronted by the fact that money is an issue for me right now, and really doing everything I can to be present to who I am and what I'm about, and not giving any of that a second thought. This morning I woke up, I don't know, I woke up, there was in that mind of trying to predict and trying to anticipate. And I thought, well, this is really interesting given the day that I was going to talk about self-love, because to be in that space of self-love, we have to give up that need to predict, that need to control, that fear that we're going to lose out, right? And anticipating how things are going to go. As a mom of 6 kids, that's what I always did. And then I worked in a dental office, and having to anticipate the needs of others was something that I got quite good at. But I don't need to be doing that any longer. It's more about being present and connected. That's really what radical self-love is all about. It's not about going and get the next mani-pedi. It's not about, curling up with the book. I mean, all those things are self-care. It's self-care, but self-love is realizing that we're all doing the best that we can. And that, in my case, that I'm doing the best I can, you're doing the best that you can. And all of these reactions that we're having are purely a trauma response. It's the best way I know how to define it. It is based on past experiences. Neil Donald Walsh used to talk about that all the time when I would read his books, and he would reference the word reaction. We are reacting out. And so I bring that to you today when I have these feelings of, because it brings up a lot of opinions that have been handed to me over the years as far as being an entrepreneur is concerned. And I am invested in this. I am 100% invested in what I talk about, the way I practice, the message I'm delivering. And standing in that investment is where I am grounding my feet. And then just kind of going, whoo, there's that one, and whoo, just kind of swaying with, because life isn't static, right? There are ups and there are downs. And at this point, I have put everything, I've invested all of me in faith. I've invested all of me in loving every experience, regardless of our human judgment. And see, that's just it. When we start to judge, this entire week really has been about radical self-love. From the point of monotasking, of, not overwhelming your mind, not, and not causing your brain to shut down, to knowing that you're not weak, neither is your body. And the thing is, well, here, I'll keep going in just a minute. Doing less, right? Not busying ourselves to the point where we block ourselves from being connected. Because when we allow ourselves to connect, whether it be to ourselves or others, we're in the space of love. Connection is about love, or love is about connection. So up into those three are all about self-love. And then there's the do the opposite. Yesterday, do the opposite. Do the opposite of whatever you're being told. I just was talking to somebody in one of the Facebook groups, adult children of alcoholics and dysfunction. And they were wanting to know how those of us who have become used to, who have become used to pleasing others, how do we actually take it back for ourselves? And my statement was, we have to be willing to create the boundaries, to establish that strong sense of self and love ourselves regardless. So, and doing the opposite, right? That's exactly what I told her. We have to do the opposite of whatever we learned. And that is really, honestly, radical self-love, when we're willing to do the opposite. In this case, and that's why I was saying that when you do the opposite, when it comes to radically loving yourself, we are in fact choosing to do things or are aligning with what makes sense to us. Because what I've experienced is that I hear all these different opinions, like you should be doing it this way, you should be doing it that way. I mean, there are so many opinions about how things should be conducted, and the fact is that I have to do it the way it makes sense to me, just the way it makes sense to me. And if it doesn't work, keep going. But that's the part of loving ourselves. It's not about stepping up and doing something because somebody else said that that's the way to do it. I mean, there are so many gurus right now. If you run your own business, I mean, at least what I can see, because, wanting to build my business and take it to the next level, it's been about, hearing, and there are so many opinions, and it becomes, again, that overwhelming, like, what do I listen to? And really just tuning in to what makes sense to me. So there is, in a sense, doing the opposite and really aligning with what resonates with your heart and your soul and the very essence of who you are. That's what this has been all about. And when we can step in, stand in, sit in, bathe in that space of who we are and what we're about, now we have an opportunity to really create, really generate and create, allow life to express itself through us. And that's all that authentic. When we talk about authentic nature, it was interesting. I got on Clubhouse earlier and somebody was talking about tapping into your feminine energy. And, you know, it really was, I won't go into everything, all my thoughts around it. It was good. It was a good conversation. But they were talking about tapping into our authentic nature. And I thought how apropos, given that I was going to be talking about self-love, because that's really what our authentic nature is. It's about when we get ourselves into that space of peace and ease. And this is why I love essential oils. We get into that space of peace and ease. We can really touch on what makes sense, like what feels right. You know, what are we hungry for? Not necessarily, I mean, it could be food. What are you hungry for? I mean, if you have this habitual way of eating, like the same foods at the same time, maybe it's checking in with yourself. I mean, actually pausing and going, no, actually, I think I want that over there. And don't question it, just go for it, just to have some. This is where we align with health and wellness. And then this is when we're allowing ourselves to align with what's coming through, we are allowing life to flow through us. And now we become a full expression of life. We're no different than a plant. At one point this week I mentioned that the only difference between you, me, and the plants is the allele placement on the DNA. That's it. Same thing can be said for the animals. But they're all the same chemical, you know, they're all the same peptides. It's just different. It's just different placements on this DNA strand. So we are, in theory, no different than a plant. And we see a plant bloom, we see a flower blossom, right? And we can see life expressing itself through that individual plant. And that's really how I see the human body and the human being, is we are life expressed. And the more we try to be like everybody else, or what the gurus are saying, or this person's saying, I mean, it comes down to diets, it's everything. Really, and this is why I'm such an advocate for personalizing our use of essential oils. The chemistry in an oil, there's a lot of overlap. You know, a good example are cannabinoids. They're not just found in cannabis. Cannabinoids are found throughout the entire plant kingdom. Beta-caryophyllene happens to be one of them. Beta-caryophyllene happens to be, and the only reason they're called cannabinoids is because they're found in cannabis. Okay, but we also realize that they're in other plants, and a number of plants. So the chemistry is somewhat the same between them. There are differences in the chemical profiles, which gives them different properties, gives them a different synergistic value, is what I like to call it. So really identifying what's going on with your system and personalizing it helps you get in alignment with what your body's needs are. And therefore now we support the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant producing DNA, because that's what the DNA does. It regulates oxidative stress versus antioxidants. That's what it does. Those are the messages that it sends out. And it comes through the stress system. It is an actual system that alters the way the chemistry in our body, it goes from pro-inflammatory, it goes from anti-inflammatory to pro-inflammatory when we're under stress. The more we react to our thoughts, like everything I was sharing in the beginning of this video, the more I have emotional reactions to what I'm thinking and the way I, you know, and my interpretations of what I'm seeing, now I am creating oxidative stress. Guess what happens? My energy plummets. I can start feeling a headache. You know, I might, all of a sudden feel like I need to eat, right? My appetite, boop, because this is all, it's just hormonal changes. So I didn't have to come on here and tell you anything that I did. I did that because I wanted to be transparent that although I talk the way I do, I'm not immune to having an emotional day. And this month has been an incredibly intense month. Doesn't help that yesterday was the full moon. And so giving myself the space and the grace and the ease and the peace. And this is why I love oils, because when we align the oils with our essence of who we are, and how life wants to flow through us, we introduce ease and peace. We eliminate dis-ease. That is how we get to a disease-free life, and that is radical self-love. When we are willing to cast off those emotions and infuse our system with something that will introduce peace and ease, now we are open to hearing something more than this. That's what antioxidant thinking is. So, a couple of things. When I think about self-love, I mean, clearly I've been doing oil suggestions all week long. So when I think of self-love, I think of empowerment. I hate that word, truthfully. It's so cliche. It's just like, can we find another word, but I think of, and when we talk about energy systems, that's your third chakra, that's your Manipura chakra. That's the solar plexus is another way of looking at it. This is where when we see a lot of digestive issues, we see a lot of addictive type behaviors. This is when we go through trauma in our life, regardless of how. I should post that picture in the group, in the event, and on the page, because we relate to trauma as something that's, we have one idea of what trauma is, but trauma occurs to most people from a very early age, even though we aren't aware of it. And a lot of it comes down to our psychological interpretations, because communication to me is key in order to nullify or prevent trauma. And one of the things that I realize is that people are not communicating. We're not communicating. Not to the degree that takes care of ourselves and takes care of others. So there's really a lot of room for interpretation. So when I think of self-love, I think of empowerment and I think of communication. And which is going to be the throat chakra. And then I think about, obviously we think of the heart, right? And I do know that none of us, or very few of us, unless you're practiced in breathing work or breath work, really takes the time to breathe. Now you might take a deep inhale when I say that, but I challenge you to take an equally, or even more, how do I want to say this? I challenge you to exhale at an even slower rate. I mean, really just calming your system down, because the exhale is what notifies the body that everything's okay. Okay? Everything is okay. So deep inhale, slow exhale, and doing that several times a day. But a lot of us we're very, very shallow. So I think of respiratory issues. Even if it is just, I'm not suggesting asthma, but even if it's just like tightness. If you go to take a deep breath and you feel like you can't really take a deep breath, it's going to take some work to get that breath in you. So I'm going with German chamomile, eucalyptus, radiata, and mind you, so we obviously you're going to say that the eucalyptus is for the breathing. So is the German chamomile. That's a really super, super good anti-inflammatory. And turmeric, and I believe people in the UK and Europe cannot get turmeric, so ginger root is an option. I learned that the other day by speaking to somebody at Neal's Yard over in London. So apparently turmeric is not available over there. In the United States, you can get it. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll help you find it. But ginger root is always a viable option as well. And that is your Radical Self-Love Blend. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to post that that meme that I have on trauma. And also going to invite you to consider, I have this masterclass next week. It's the 30th. $17. And it's everything that I was talking about today, really helping you design a personalized plan to actually align with your true nature so that life can be fully expressed through you, and that you can begin to recover from whatever trauma you've gone through in your life, as well as rise above the pain, whether it be emotional and or physical. Okay, so please comment below. Let me know. You're welcome to message me if you have any questions. But this is, I'll do this again at some point, and I look forward to seeing you in the masterclass. It's 90 minutes and $17, and you get the replay. All right, so have a beautiful day. This challenge, this event, I will make sure that everything is up for the next week, and then I'm going to take it down so that I can either repurpose this one or come back on and do another live. All right, so thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And whatever you do, love you. Take exquisite care of you and love you, because we need your presence and your connection.